Hey all. So, last week Ultimate Hunting asked us a really interesting question. Now let's go through it. Now here's what they said. As you know, hunting is not about being sneaky and shooting, it's about moving from one place to another, sometimes even very large distances. Therefore, we want to ask you, what means of transport would you like to see in Ultimate Hunting? Now I found that extremely interesting and I decided not to include this in last week's video because I wanted to do a deeper dive on it. Now the following items are things that I could think of that are not your standard 4x4 hunting vehicles, and items that could add to the experience rather than just being more of the same. I'm also looking at this from a realism standpoint. However, we still do not know exactly how the game mechanics are going to work with regards to transport, so this is not all set in stone. Firstly, the most requested item that I have seen for Ultimate Hunting are horses. Now the pros for horses are they are extremely quiet, you are less likely to spook animals. Riding a horse to go hunting would be very immersive, and you can traverse rough terrain, which you will not be able to do with other forms of transport. The cons, however, if they go for the realism aspect, that means your horse could be attacked by predators. I'm not sure if that's going to be a mechanic in the game, but there is a possibility for that. Horses are also notoriously difficult to get right in games. I mean, just look at The Witcher 3. And you also have the issue where you cannot transport anything larger than a whitetail with a horse. So it may result in you having to get a guide to come and collect the animal, and that might be compulsory if you have a horse. Other issues, you do not have much room to carry gear. You have a one-person carrying capacity. Annoying people, they're going to want multiple choices for horse breeds. They're not going to want just one breed, and that could really be an issue. The next item on the list is an electric bike. Now you could substitute this with a normal bicycle, but I think an electric bike would suit it better. It's more modern. The pros are it's very quiet, it's less likely to spook animals than anything with a combustion engine. You do have an option for trailers in real life. However, I'm not sure if that would be in the game if they do include this. And you can reach places that larger vehicles would struggle to reach. The cons, however, are you will probably spook more animals with a bike than you would with a horse. You have no way of transporting larger animals, and if there is no trailer, you've got no way of transporting basically any animal. You do not have much room to carry gear, and once again, you've got a one-person carrying capacity. Then we move on to the ATV. The pros for the ATV is it's faster than a horse or an e-bike. You can access places that a 4x4 cannot access. You do have a trailer option, and it does have more storage than a horse or an e-bike. And you could potentially have a two-person carrying capacity depending on the game mechanics. The cons, I would hazard to say that it's actually noisier than a standard 4x4. So you will be spooking animals from a lot further away. Even though you have more space for gear than a horse and an e-bike, your gear is still extremely limited. Once again, you cannot transport larger game unless they have a trailer option, and even with a trailer option, I think your max would probably be a whitetail. And your riding height is a lot lower, meaning in short shrubbery, you're not going to be able to see very far. Then we move on to the utility vehicle. Now, first of all, depending on how they do it and what they allow, this could be the coolest looking form of transport in the game. The pros are almost exactly the same as the ATV, except for the fact that you've got multiple configurations, once again depending on what they allow in the game, but you could have up to a 4-person carrying capacity and potentially up to 8-wheel drive, and you have a loading bin, meaning that you could carry more gear and you could carry larger game than you would with an e-bike or an ATV. The cons, however, once again, you have a very low riding height. You will struggle to transport larger game like elk. It is still noisy, and out of all the things that I've listed, it's probably the worst when it comes to accessing difficult terrain. Now this brings us to something, because all of these things I said do not transport larger game. Now you could argue that with a 4x4 your max limit is probably a greater kudu or a tule elk. However, in real life I have seen people loading up to a giraffe in the back of a 4x4, but bigger than a giraffe is really not something that you would want to load into a 4x4. If they include a trailer, then potentially a hippo, but definitely not an elephant. So the question is, how would we transport the largest of game? And I think the only way we would be able to do that is if we had to get the guide to come and collect this animal. He would need to come with a large truck, but at the end of the day, that would not be our transport. Now, looking at this list, the things that I would like to see the most in game are horses, e-bikes, and utility vehicles. And when the guide comes to collect the animal, and if he has a truck, I would love for it to be a really cool cutscene where he comes in, has the animal loaded on the back, and then drives off. But I do not want them spending valuable time and resources on something like the cutscene, because at the end of the day, we want this game to come out, and something like a cutscene could wait for closer to the official release rather than early access. I personally do not want ATVs in this game. We've got ATVs in Call of the Wild, and I grew an absolute hatred for those things, and because of that, I just do not want to see them in the game. Now folks, just some very quick channel information. I absolutely hate talking about stuff like this. That is why I've not mentioned it so far, but I figured that if I don't speak about it, then people don't know about it. There is now the option to become a channel member. I made one membership tier, it's $1. For that $1, you get a badge next to your name, you get emotes, and you will get a shout out in the videos. But please do not feel obligated to get it if you don't want to. I just thought if I don't speak about it, then nobody knows. But folks, that is all I've got. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about this list and what would you like to see that I did not include. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.